In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to use a conditional to test the position of an actor in Greenfoot. Conditionals are very important when you're programming. It's much of software is built around conditionals. A conditional is a statement that asks a question, and if the question is true, one thing happens, and otherwise something else happens. So the way you build conditionals in Java and most, or I should say many other programming languages, is to use the if keyword. So you say if, and then you ask some question. Of course, you have to ask the question in a way that Java understands it, and then you say else, right? So and if the if statement isn't true, well, then whatever is in the else body gets executed. And I'm going to show you this using the rocket over here. So my rocket here, I had, as you can see, let's actually go back to the Star Encyclopedia, which is our world, and in here I've just very simply instantiated a rocket, and then I've added it. So remember, this tells me this is a rocket, right? And this is my identifier for my rocket, so I can refer to my rocket by using R. And then this is new is the keyword that instantiates a new rocket. And then of course here, this is the constructor method. This is kind of a method that's part of any class in most object-oriented programs, and in Java it is usually the name of the method is exactly the same as well. It is always exactly the same as the name of the class, and then you since it's a method, actually this is why there are these two parentheses. So this is just simple code that we've done before, and this code here adds the object to your world. So that's what we've done. And now if we go into the rocket class, we see that when I instantiate a rocket, all that's happening here is that it's going to move 10 steps. So let me compile that, right? And once I compile that and run it, that's all that happens really. But now what I'm going to want to do is, if it reaches a certain point, I'm going to want it to turn around. So to do that, I need a conditional. And the first part, as I said, in a conditional is to use the if statement. So an if statement looks like this, and then inside the if statement there is some kind of conditional, some kind of question you ask, and the question you're going to ask is always going to be inside of these parentheses here. And if that's true, well, then something happens, and you need an if body. And to the usual way of creating a body in many of these object-oriented languages is to use the curly brackets. So you open the curly brackets and you close the curly brackets, and whatever is inside these curly brackets, is going to be what gets executed if the question up here is true, right? So we need to ask a question, and the question we're going to ask so we're going to ask the question if x is greater than, and we're just going to use one here. We're just going to say it can never go beyond 500 of 500 pixels or 500 units. So this question just very simply asks, is x greater than 500? Well, then we're going to make it turn around, right? But we don't yet have what this x value is, so we need to use we need to create a variable here, and we need to create an integer variable. So just like we did, remember in the Star Encyclopedia class here, just like we did rocket r, well, this is an integer. So in our rocket in the class here, we're going to do this is an integer. So we int x, and then we need to use a method that's part of all the actor classes. And so we're going to refer to the object itself. So this is this dot, and then the method you use is get x. And you have to, of course, remember that you have, since Java is case sensitive, you have to make sure that the get part is lowercase and the x is uppercase. So this method here simply gets what the x position is. So now that we've done that, now we can actually compare x to some value, some integer value. And here we're saying, well, if x is greater than 500, well, then we're going to do something, right? So then if x is greater than 500, we're going to turn. So actually, let's use this keyword, this. That means the object itself is going to call a method called turn, which is part of the actor, all the actor classes. Anything that inherits from actor, anything that extends actor, as is called in Java, anything that extends actor will be able to use this method turn or move, like up here. So turn, and then we're going to do turn, and we're going to turn it 180 degrees, which means we're going to turn it entirely around and there. And now that's the code. So let's compile it, and then let's run it and see. Oh, and there it turned around, right? So what we can do now is we can do, well, we can make it turn around again and just go back and forth, back and forth. So we could add another if statement. So we're going to do that right below here, and again in the rocket class, in the act method of the rocket class. So we're going to do if x is less than, let's say 50. Well, then we're going to turn around again, right? So let's just put this curly bracket below here so it's very easy to see. So you see, this is anything that's inside this parentheses again. That's the conditional that we check for. So we're saying if x is less than 50. Well, if this is true, well, then something's going to happen. And what's going to happen is what's inside of the if body, which is outlined by opening the curly bracket and then closing the curly bracket. So inside there, we're just going to do this dot turn, and we're going to turn again. We're going to turn just 180 degrees. We're going to do that, turn it around just like that. Oops. So there we go. This dot turn. So let's compile it again, and let's run that. And there it turned around, and there, oh, it turned around again, and it's just going to keep on going back and forth and back and forth. Well, now we're going to see, you see, we use two if statements there, but really this is, you can see that this code is exactly the same inside here. So what we could do instead is we could actually remove this code, and we're gonna remove that code, and we're actually going to ask we're going to ask one single question. And you're going to see how we can ask one single question, and that's where we can use an or statement, right? We can say inside of this, if we can ask a question, just like you say, if you ask a question like if, well, what we're going to say is if x is less than 50 or x, oh, I read that wrong. If x is greater than 500 or x is less than 50, well, then do this, right? So the way to write an or in Java is to use two bars like that, and you'll find them where you have on your keyboard where the backslash is as well. It's on a QWERTY keyboard. It's on the right hand side of the keyboard on an English QWERTY keyboard. So what we're going to write then, so that's that really, these two bars here mean or, right? Or, and we're going to write if x is greater than 500 or x is less than 50, well, then we're going to turn around. So let's compile that and let's run that, right? So let's see what happens. You see? Wow, much less code. And this is really what you're trying to do when you're writing code. You're trying to write as little code as possible. So let's pause that. And so, well, that's the OR statement. The other statements you could use are the AND statement and the AND statement. And I'm just going to make a comment here just to show you what the AND statements look like. The AND statement is ampersand, ampersand, right? That's AND. So let me just put that in as a comment. Remember, if you want to write a comment, you do 2 slashes, right? Means and, right? And then means or, right? So there are the 2 ways you can do it. So essentially, instead of 2 bars, if you wanted to ask an and question, you would do and, right? Well, that would be that question would always be false because, of course, x can't be greater than 500 and less than 50 at the same time. So it was just an example to show you how to use the and. So that's how you use conditionals in Java and in Greenfoot. And this method here, this line of code here is also very useful. So try it out and see if you can get your actors to move in funny ways. Now you could, of course, do something different. You can see, for example, turn 90. Let's see what happens. Actually, let's do turn something like 145. Let's see what happens, and let's run it. Oh, I didn't compile it, so let's compile it and let's run it and see what happens. You see, oh, that was weird. Okay. Oh, that's weird. So, and then it gets stuck there, right? So, yeah, it's actually gonna turn around probably when it reaches. Oh, there it goes, right? So you can make weird stuff. You can, of course, use negative numbers in your turn if you want to. So let's run that and see what happens, right? So there. Oh, let's actually compile that and then run it. And there you go, and see. Now you got weird movements. Okay, so that's how you get something to move, and using a conditional in Greenfoot. Have fun.